Lady is, you ever notice how sometimes you can't get somebody out your mind and then out of nowhere they call, text, or pop up in your life? See, that ain't just coincidence, that's connection. That's two people whose energy is still locked in. And let me tell you something, even when the relationship is over, even when life moves on, the mind and the heart have a way of sending little signals that say, hey, I still think about you. You ever have those moments where you're just going about your business, making coffee, sitting in traffic, folding laundry, and all of a sudden that one person pops into your head. You didn't plan it. You didn't call for it. But there they are, like a little ghost walking across your thoughts. And the crazy part, something in your gut tells you they might be thinking of you too. Now, I ain't talking about no fairy tale mind reading. I'm talking about that real life connection where your hearts got so used to each other that they still send little signals, even when your lives ain't tangled up anymore. See, people think connection is just about being together physically. Nah, real connection sticks to you like perfume on a sweater. Even when you try to wash it off, a little bit stays. You could have been apart for months, years even, but the bond you had, it leaves fingerprints on your soul. And every so often, something in life will touch those fingerprints, and boom, you're both remembering each other at the same time. It could be the smallest thing. You're walking through a store, and that song y'all used to jam to comes on. You freeze for half a second, your chest feels tight, and suddenly you're right back in their car, windows down, singing like fools. And in that exact same moment, they could be somewhere across town, hearing that same song and thinking about you. That ain't just coincidence. That's the energy between two people that had something real. Or maybe it's a smell. You walk past somebody wearing their favorite cologne or perfume, and it's like your memory just unlocked 1,000 little moments. That smell brings them back so clear, you could almost reach out and touch him. It's wild how your senses carry the history of somebody you loved. And whether you believe it or not, when those moments hit you that strong, there's a good chance something's tugging on their memory too. Sometimes it's even stranger. You ever get that urge to reach out to somebody, like you're just sitting there and all of a sudden you feel like you need to text them. No real reason. You just want to. And then before you can do it, your phone lights up and it's them. Or maybe you finally send that, hey, how you been? Message and they hit you back with, I was just thinking about you. Now tell me that's not connection. Tell me that's not two hearts tuned into the same frequency. And let me tell you something else. Memories have their own schedule. You don't get to control when they show up. You could be busy at work, in a meeting, halfway through an important task, and suddenly you're smiling because you remembered something they said years ago. Maybe it was the way they laughed so hard they snorted, or the way they used to hold your hand in public like they were proud to be with you. Those little flashes, that's your mind revisiting the good times without warning. And most of the time, they're having their own flashbacks too. Sometimes it's even deeper than memories. Sometimes they just cross your mind for no reason at all. You weren't thinking about the past, you weren't looking at old pictures, you weren't anywhere near something that should remind you of them. And yet, there they are in your head. That's the kind of moment that makes you stop and think, wait, why now? It's because energy is real. Feelings are real. And when someone's thinking about you, somehow, some way, your spirit catches it. Now, here's one that's going to sound strange to some people, but if you've experienced it, you know it's true. Dreams. You go to sleep, minding your own business, and next thing you know, they're in your dreams. Maybe you're talking, maybe you're laughing, maybe you're just existing together like nothing ever happened. You wake up and it feels so real, you almost reach for your phone. And here's the kicker. They could be having a dream about you at the exact same time. I've heard too many people tell me they had that happen for me to believe it's just chance. The thing is, when you've shared real love or deep friendship, or even just a powerful moment in life with someone, it leaves a mark. You could fight it, deny it, or bury it under new relationships, but it's there. And every once in a while, life will tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, remember them? And the wildest part, life is probably tapping them on the shoulder too. I don't care how strong you are, how busy you stay, or how many new people come into your life. Some connections just don't fade easy. They live in the way you talk, the way you laugh, the way you see the world. You could be with somebody else, but certain things still take you back to them. And sometimes when you're feeling that pull, there's somewhere feeling it too. That's why people say, I was just thinking of you, like it's some kind of magic. Well, it kind of is. Maybe it's not about getting back together. Maybe it's not even about reaching out. Sometimes it's just about recognizing that what you shared mattered, so much so that the universe lets you borrow a little piece of that feeling again from time to time. That's why those hidden signs matter. They're not always a sign you need to act, but they're always a sign that you were both important enough to leave an imprint. You can call it fate, energy, coincidence, or just the way human minds work. But I know this, when two people are thinking about each other at the same time, there's a reason. There's always a reason. And deep down, you both feel it, even if you don't say a word. If you want, I can now do EXPEND 2 on this same topic with 1,100 more words, keeping the style fresh but still Steve Harvey style, so it feels like a continuation for a video series. That way you have multiple versions for different uploads. Want me to start that? Let me tell you something. When two people have really shared something real, it doesn't matter how much time passes or how far apart you are, there's a part of you that's still connected. You might think you've moved on, you might convince yourself you've closed that chapter, but every now and then, life has a funny way of reminding you that there's still somewhere in your thoughts. And you know what's even crazier? Sometimes right at the same moment, you're somewhere in theirs too. It could be the middle of the night. You're lying there in the dark, trying to fall asleep, and suddenly you remember something small. Maybe it's the way they used to say your name. Maybe it's how they'd look at you when they thought you weren't watching. It comes out of nowhere, like your brain just decided to play a clip from an old movie you forgot you loved. And here's the twist. While you're lying there, smiling or maybe even fighting back a tear, they could be on their side of the world doing the same thing. That's connection. That's something real that doesn't let go easy. Sometimes it's even more direct. You're just sitting there minding your own business and you feel this pull, like your spirit is restless, like something's tapping on your heart. And before you can even figure out why, your phone dings. It's them. Or maybe you're the one who finally sends a message and they hit you back saying, I swear I was just about to text you. Now you can call that coincidence if you want, but I call it proof that when two people's lives get intertwined deeply enough, they stay tuned into each other, even without trying. And it doesn't just happen with technology. Sometimes it's nature itself that plays the messenger. You're walking through a park, the wind blows a certain way, and you catch the smell of fresh rain mixed with flowers. For some reason, it takes you straight back to a spring day you spent together. You didn't plan to remember it, but there it is, as vivid as if it happened yesterday. And you know what? They might be somewhere right then, smelling the same air and feeling the exact same flash of memory. Music is another one. I don't care how strong you think you are. There's always that one song that's dangerous. You know the one. You hear the first two notes and your stomach drops. You can't help but remember that night, that dance, that drive, that kiss. And the wildest part, somewhere, maybe even at that same moment, they could be hearing that same song. That's not just a playlist. That's the universe working overtime. Then there's the silent moments. No sound, no smell, no trigger, just a sudden thought. They walk right into your head without knocking. You weren't doing anything that had anything to do with them, but there they are. And you have to wonder, why now? That's when I believe there's more to this life than we understand. That's when I believe that maybe, just maybe, when you're on someone's mind hard enough, it sends a ripple out into the world and you catch it. And don't get me started on dreams. Man, dreams will mess you up. You could go months without even saying their name, and then one night, they show up in your sleep like nothing ever changed. You're laughing, talking, holding hands, maybe even arguing, but it feels so real that you wake up with your heart racing. And here's the part that's hard to explain. Sometimes they had a dream about you too. I've heard people tell me stories about waking up to a text that says, you were in my dream last night, and they were just about to say the same thing. You can't make that stuff up. Here's what I think: when you've really cared for somebody, when you've really opened your heart to them, they become part of your story. You don't just erase that. You can write new chapters, meet new people, build a whole new life. but that person's ink is still on the page. And sometimes that connection finds ways to tap you on the shoulder. It might come in waves. You'll go months without thinking about them. Then one day, they hit you like a ton of bricks. You're thinking about the time you both got caught in the rain, or the way they laughed so hard they cried. Or maybe you're just picturing their face and wondering what they're doing now. And somewhere, without you knowing, they could be wondering the same about you. Even little habits can spark it. You're cooking a certain dish, and you remember how they used to love it. You're passing by a street, and you remember walking down it together. It's almost like your mind has a scrapbook, and certain moments just jump off the page whether you want them to or not. And when that happens, you have to wonder if their mind is flipping through the same scrapbook too. Sometimes it's a little spooky. You're telling a friend a story about them, and your phone lights up with their name. Or you find an old picture you forgot you even had, and the next day, you run into them by pure chance. That's when you realize life has a strange way of connecting dots you didn't even know were on the page. The thing is, we all leave imprints on each other. You can't be that close to somebody, share that much, and not leave something behind. And sometimes those imprints are so deep that they echo back to each other. It's like you're both still carrying a piece of the other person, and every once in a while, those pieces start humming at the same time. And maybe you don't do anything about it. Maybe you don't call. Maybe you don't text. Maybe you just smile to yourself and go on with your day. But deep down, there's a comfort in knowing that you crossed their mind the same way they crossed yours. It's proof that what you had was real enough to leave a shadow, even after the sun's gone down. I've learned this: sometimes those moments happen to remind you that you were loved or that you loved somebody deeply. And no matter what life looks like now, that part of your story still matters. Because when two people think of each other at the same time, that's more than random chance. That's a piece of your soul waving hello to theirs, even if it's just for a second. You ever just stop what you're doing for no reason and think about somebody? I mean, you're busy. Maybe you're working, eating, cleaning, talking to somebody else. But suddenly, boom, they're in your head. You don't know why. You don't know what triggered it, but there they are. And you know what? Sometimes at that exact moment, they're somewhere thinking about you too. That's the kind of thing you can't plan, can't force, and can't explain away as just nothing. That's a bond still breathing. See, the mind and the heart don't care about your plans. They don't care that you told yourself you're over it. When you've really shared something meaningful with a person, when you've let them see you in your most honest, unfiltered state, some part of them stays with you. And every now and then, life just brings that part to the surface. It might be something simple, like hearing their favorite phrase or a joke they used to tell. You could be in the middle of a conversation with a friend, and someone says something that sounds just like them, and your mind takes a little detour down memory lane. You start thinking about their smile, the way they looked when they were deep in thought, or how they used to tell stories with so much passion. And maybe, without you knowing, they're somewhere else, remembering the same kind of things about you. One of the wildest ways it happens is through songs. Man, music will get you every time. A melody has the power to pull you out of the present and throw you right back into a moment you thought you forgot. You hear a certain tune, and suddenly you're in their car again, laughing with the windows down. You're holding hands at that concert. You're dancing in the kitchen. And the crazy thing, they could be hearing that same song at the same time, feeling the same wave of emotion. That's more than coincidence. That's a connection still alive in the background. It doesn't always come from obvious triggers, though. Sometimes you'll just feel a shift in your mood. You could be feeling fine, and then suddenly you feel this warmth or this heaviness, and you don't even know why. That's the kind of thing that makes me believe in energy. The idea that we send out these invisible signals without even meaning to, and the people who are connected to us can feel them. That's why sometimes you'll think of someone out of the blue and later find out they were going through something. Your mind and heart knew before your ears did. Dreams are another level of this. You could be living your life without a thought about them for weeks, maybe months, and then they just show up in your dreams like they never left. You're walking together, having a conversation, maybe even arguing about something old, but it feels so real. You wake up with your heart still beating fast. And here's the kicker. Sometimes they'll tell you they dreamed about you too. How do you explain that? How do you write that off as nothing? Sometimes the signs are so clear it's almost scary. You'll be telling a story about them to someone and your phone lights up with their name. Or you're thinking about something they used to do, and then you see them post something online about the exact same thing. That's when you realize there's a thread still tying you together, no matter how far apart you are. And it's not always about romance. This can happen with old friends, family members, even people you've had falling outs with. The common thread is that you once mattered to each other in a way that left a mark. That mark doesn't fade just because you're not talking every day. It's still there, hidden under all the new layers life has thrown on top. And sometimes both of you brush off the dust at the same time without even realizing it. It could be the smallest moment that starts it. You walk into a restaurant you haven't been to in years, and the smell hits you. It's the same smell from that night you sat across from them for hours, talking about everything and nothing. You can almost see their face across the table. You can almost hear their laugh. And while you're sitting there with all those memories rushing back, they might be somewhere remembering a night just like it. Even places can do it. You could be driving down a street and suddenly remember walking there with them. The way they carried themselves, the way they talked, the little gestures they made. All of it comes back crystal clear. And just maybe, on some other street, they're having their own flashback about you. Sometimes it's more subtle. You'll be going through old boxes, cleaning out a closet, and you'll find something they gave you or something that reminds you of them. It's not even about the object itself. It's about the flood of emotions it brings with it. That's when you know that connection still has a pulse. And sometimes at that same moment, they're finding something that reminds them of you. It's almost like your minds have a secret meeting place where they check in on each other. You don't plan it. You don't even know it's happening, but it's real. You both still carry a little piece of the other person, and those pieces have a way of lighting up at the same time. Even silence can speak volumes. You haven't talked in ages, but one day you both feel that tug. Maybe you act on it, maybe you don't, but the fact that it happened means something. It means that deep down, you're still linked in a way that time and distance can't completely erase. And sometimes it's not about acting on it at all. It's just about acknowledging that the connection was real, that it still exists, even in a quiet, background kind of way. It's about recognizing that for a moment in your life, this person mattered so much that they left an imprint on your soul. And sometimes you both remember that at the same time. When two people think about each other in the same moment, that's more than just a passing thought. That's a little piece of the universe saying, you see, what you had was real enough to still echo, and those echoes, they can travel a long, long way. You ever have that moment where you just stop and feel like somebody's thinking about you? You don't know why. You're not doing anything connected to them, but there's this little pull in your chest, like a memory just walked in uninvited. That's because when you've shared something real with somebody, there's a part of them that lives in you and a part of you that lives in them. And sometimes those two parts start talking to each other, even when you're not in the same room, same city, or even the same life anymore. It could be in the middle of your day. You're at work minding your business, and suddenly their face just pops into your head. Not because of something you saw or heard. It's just there. You remember the exact way they used to look at you when you said something crazy. You hear their voice, the way it dipped when they were being serious or the way it jumped when they were excited. And while you're sitting there, caught up in that little mental flashback, they might be somewhere thinking about you just the same. Songs are dangerous when it comes to this kind of thing. There's always that one track that's tied to them so tightly, you can't hear it without feeling something. It could be a love song, could be a breakup song, could even be a silly one you both used to laugh at. But when it plays, you're gone. You're not in the room anymore. You're back in the car with them, or on that date, or slow dancing in the kitchen. And here's what makes it even crazier. They could be hearing that same song at the exact same time. That's the kind of thing that makes you stop and think maybe life's got a little more magic than we give it credit for. Smells will get you too. You're walking past a stranger and catch a whiff of the cologne or perfume they used to wear. And just like that, 1,000 memories wake up all at once. The dinners, the hugs, the way their scent would stay on your clothes long after they were gone. You might smile, or it might hurt, but either way, it's a reminder that they're still somewhere inside you. And don't think for a second that smells can't work both ways, because they can. They might walk past a stranger wearing your scent and feel the same punch in the chest you just did. Sometimes the trigger is a place. You're driving down a street you haven't been on in years, and suddenly you remember walking there with them. Maybe it was nothing special, just a casual day, but the memory is so sharp it feels like it happened yesterday. You can almost hear the conversation you were having. You can almost see the way they move, the way they laugh, and just maybe somewhere else, they're passing by a spot that brings them right back to you. And then there are the unexplainable moments, the times they just show up in your mind for no reason at all. That's when I really believe in energy, because thoughts like that don't come out of nowhere. Sometimes you're thinking about them because they're thinking about you, and your spirit just knows it. That's why you get that sudden pull, like somebody just whispered your name without making a sound. Dreams are another story altogether. You could go months without a thought about them, and then one night they show up in your sleep like they never left. You could be laughing, talking, sitting side by side like you used to. You wake up, and for a second, it feels like they're still there. And sometimes you'll hear from them right after, saying they dreamed about you too. That's when you start wondering if dreams are just dreams, or if they're a meeting place for people who still carry each other in their hearts. Even your body has ways of remembering. You might be eating a certain meal and remember the time you cooked it together. You might hold something in your hands and remember them giving it to you, little things. The way they folded a napkin, the way they held a pen, come back to you like they were never gone. And here's the wild part, they might be sitting somewhere with their own little trigger, thinking of you in the exact same moment. Sometimes the timing is so on point it's almost spooky. You're talking about them, and your phone lights up with a message from them. You're wondering how they've been, and you run into them in a store. You're looking through old photos and they call. It's like the universe is saying, yeah, I see y'all. I'm just reminding you both that you still exist in each other's world. You might think you've moved on, and maybe you have in the ways that count. Maybe you're in a new relationship. Maybe you're focused on your own growth. Maybe you haven't seen them in years. But the truth is, some people leave fingerprints on your soul that don't fade. You might not be in love anymore, but the history is still there. The bond is still there. And every so often, life gives you these little nudges to remind you of that. Even habits can hold echoes of them. You take your coffee a certain way because they introduced you to it. You quote a line in conversation without realizing it's something they used to say. You listen to a certain genre of music because of them. These little things become so normal you forget where they came from, until one day you remember, and in that moment they might be somewhere doing something that has your fingerprints all over it. It's not always about rekindling anything. Sometimes it's just about acknowledging that you matter to each other, that at some point your lives were intertwined in a way that left an imprint. And the fact that you both still think about each other, even if it's once in a blue moon, means that connection was real. You can't fake that. You can't force it. And you sure can't erase it completely. There's a kind of quiet comfort in knowing that when you cross their mind, it's not always because of sadness or regret. Sometimes it's just a warm memory, a little spark of gratitude for the role you played in their story. And maybe in the same moment, you're feeling that same warmth about them. Life is full of new people, new experiences, and new chapters. But some pages are written so deeply into your story that no matter how far you go, you can still hear the echo. And when those echoes line up, when you're both thinking of each other at the same time, that's life's way of saying, yeah, what you had mattered. And it still does in some way.